So then the next Dreamhack started, and my group was pretty much exactly the same as the one before in terms of level of my opponents. My group looked like the following. I was seed 1 this time because Cyril didn't make it to the season finals. And I still got Cyril though, because I always will get Cyril for the rest of my life until eternity. And then I had Seoul and Hellraiser again. I had basically Marine Lord instead of Mana, let's say, which is pretty much 1-for-1 the same MMR. And then I had DNS instead of Hearthstone, which also is the same MMR. And then I had Shadow instead of Sort of, which is also the same MMR. And then I had Milky Council of Art, which is also the same MMR. So my opponents were exactly the same strength. The races were a couple more, or one more turn. It's 2 more turns, which is a little bit worse for me because my ZVT is not as good as my ZVP, but it was pretty good. So overall, I was pretty happy with the group actually. I thought it was gonna be a great group to get top 2 because the rest of the players looked like they would lose against each other. So overall, I thought even if I might drop a map or so, I could still get top 2. And I went into it with a very, very positive vibes. Right before the tournament, I actually stopped streaming for a little bit. And I laddered up my barcode to 7k without any issues. I had a full green screen on it. I don't know how many games that is, wins in a row. I think it's 14 or so. And I did not only have a green screen there, I also had it on my streaming account where I laddered a little bit as well, which I laddered up to above 6-9. And I just went there without any issues. So at this point, I just felt like a 7k player. I felt like what I said before. I basically felt like I'm in the top 6 of Europe right now, and I'm a little bit away from Maxpax and Laser, which are behind me. So I felt pretty good about everything, and I was like, okay, Jona's pretty hard. Let's get second again and see where we go from there. That was the goal for the group stage. And then the group started. And it started differently than last time. Last time I started against one of the bottom seeds of the groups. This time I started against the 3rd seed, which was against Seoul. And that series did not go my way at all. He actually played pretty much what I predicted, and you guys can ask Aquarium this, because I practiced with him and I told him what I think Seoul is gonna do. I practiced with also Eutherm at this point and Kalazur a little bit, so I had decent practice against Terran. And I told Aquarium, okay, he's probably gonna proxy Rex me. I was very certain of it. And one game he's gonna go something weird, like a 3cc battlecruiser into bio, or something. Maybe he's gonna bunker rush my 3rd base because he thinks my speed is delayed. Something really weird, basically, is what I thought he was gonna do. I was very certain that he was not gonna play standard. His win rate against me in standard games is abysmal in custom games, but his win rate with proxy Rex was really good. So I was quite certain he was gonna proxy Rex me. So I practiced against that kind of stuff specifically. Then this series starts, and game 1 he does something really weird. He only makes Marines, or only shows me Marines. And that game, I don't know what exactly I was. Well, I do remember what I was thinking, but so I was thinking, okay, maybe it's gonna be something really weird, like a 2-1-1 into mech, something like that, or maybe it's a fast 2 medevac drop with like a Hellbed follow-up where he just opens with a reactor first, but then has a fast factory and starport. And then I thought, but maybe it's some kind of weird 3 Rex build. SCV pool also an option. Just overall, some of those were the options in my head that I thought were the most likely. But then one thing I did not realize during that game was that there was no depot at the front, which, as you guys know, if you guys watch my stream ever, it means that it's a 3cc opener. So without realizing that, even though I had an Overlord literally above the pillar on his natural the entire time, it did not make click in my head that it was a 3cc build. Then I go in, scout with Zerglings, I see a 3rd gas, or a gas that is natural. And I did not realize I saw a gas. Because in my head, while all of this is going on, the StarCraft game is playing in the background, and I'm thinking about the different builds that he might be doing right now. Instead of just playing the game and seeing for myself what actually makes sense here. So alone from those 2 things, it has to be a 3cc opener. Now, he did not make any Hellions, if I recall correctly. So if it was a 3cc 2-1-1, which was what he told me afterwards, he wanted to fake, his medevacs would have left at like 5-10, something like that. 5 minutes, 5-10. Which they did not. So at that point, no matter what, you realize the gas might... It's either a 2 base opening with 3 gas, in which case The queens are fine that I'm making against the 3cc 211, but then I add spores, obviously. Or it's just a normal 3cc opener with a starport and a 2-gas opener. Maybe he's gonna hide 2 banshees. Either way, I would make spores at the moment that I realized that he's not moving out with the marines at the timing that he should. But during the game, I was afraid that this was a 2-base. I played as if he was on 2 bases, even though I knew for a fact if I basically added 1 and 1 together to make it 2, I could not for my life put the dots together and connect that was a 3cc opener. So I made a ton of units. I made a ton of queens, which are actually good against this opener, and then 2 BCs showed up in my base, and I don't know what I was thinking, how I could not have spores at that moment in time. But I just... yeah, I don't really recall what happened in that 1 minute from 5 to 6, or past 5 minutes, that I did not put the dots together still. In my head also, I just didn't know that there was a gas at his natural. Like, I just didn't know that. That would have helped a lot. So I just thought it was a very weird build, and I was thinking about all the builds in my head, which could make sense right now from 2 base, which are super weird. Eventually I realized it's a 3cc pretty much right before the BCs came in, but I was not prepared. I tried to counter attack, I made way too many units, the game was over. I lost 1-0 to a build that I thought was shit. It's terrible. Like, it was a terrible build. I think if I just think logically, if I see this on the ladder play against some... I will assume first of all that my opponent is below 6k, and then I think I would stomp that build just by having a spore in my base. It followed up with like a relatively weak tank push where both of the BCs are there as well, and I died against it pretty easily because I just completely was in my own mind. And in the second game I held a 2 racks. He did a 2 racks with 3 bunkers, and I did not realize that the 3 bunkers meant no second gas or no gas at all. So I was afraid of so many different things. Like, in my head, this series, I was just afraid of all the weird things that he could kill me with, because I knew he can't win standard. That I was so much in my mind that I did not play the game properly. Like, I thought of, okay, first Hellion drop, obvious follow-up, right? Hellion, I made a building nest. I made some links early against the Hellion drop, which cannot possibly be there because he doesn't have a gas. So Hellion drop, Hellion, both of those not possible. Marine tank all-in. I didn't know if it was 2cc or 3cc. I could not have known that because he killed the Overlord in the middle of the map. But most of the time they followed this triple bunker up with 3cc, but I didn't know that at that point either. So I was afraid of 2 base tank all-in. I was afraid of hidden banshees. I was afraid of battle cruisers. So I made spore crawlers, a lot of queens. Instead of going with my game plan, which was to play Muta, because Seoul is extremely weak against Mutas. So I ended up being in my own mind. I ended up losing a relatively close macro game against him. I did not play too hot. I even killed my own banelings at some point, which was great for my mental fortitude. So I ended up losing the first series 2-0. But overall, I looked at the group and I was pretty sure that Seoul was going to drop some maps here and there, and he was going to lose a series against someone else. So I could still go top 2. But I was pretty pissed with the general way I played myself. Not thinking too much of it at this point. But then I played against Hellraiser, and Hellraiser is someone that I should beat in my head. I still obviously respect my opponent, and I always prepare for him just the same. It doesn't matter if he's if I'm playing against Dust or if I'm playing against Hellraiser. I will prepare to the best of my ability for him, and I knew that Hellraiser was going to do some weird stuff. I played a lot of games against Protoss, and this is my best matchup, so I was pretty confident about it. And then game 1 starts, and he does Nexus first into carries, which was exactly the kind of stuff that I was gonna happen. Obviously, if he plays standard, like, there was a 0% chance that he was ever gonna play a standard game. I watched his games in the qualifier where he barely won 3-2 against Soul Spirit, who's I think a French Zerg player who was kind enough to send me the replays. Where when Hellraiser played standard, the 2 games he lost, and Soul Spirit is 6,000 MMR. I think Hellraiser at that point was also 6,300 or so MMR. So he's a solid 600 MMR lower than me. He's actually much closer to my off race than my main race. Which is funny because this thought was in my head a little bit afterwards. Either way, I end up starting the game with Overlord speed, so playing very safe, and he ended up playing super greedy. Nexus first into carriers, getting super early geysers. Basically, he got the best build possible to make the most amount of sky units early on. Right? I didn't lose anything against the carriers because I scouted them. But then I went for a timing, which usually this timing works against carrier openers, especially against the let's say not showtimes, even against showtimes, it worked almost always. But showtime plays a carrier opening with a normal opener, and I also play a normal opener. I'm not playing Overlord Speed against showtime. So showtime will have less units than Hellraiser, which I could have thought of during the game but didn't. So I attacked and lost. Pretty hard. There was no chance that was ever going to work. I could have thought of that before and just played late game, but I didn't. So I lost. Second game, he does exactly the same strategy. I play late game and he has no chance. At that game, I was like, I don't even know what his win condition could be, because he plays only Sky units, so he's never ever gonna be just kill me, and I did not really understand the thought process of it, but I was like, okay, whatever. If I just play late game, I win, so it's fine. At this point, I dropped another map against someone I probably shouldn't, and I did not feel too good. So I played the third game, and that game was really, once again, me worrying about stuff that was not even possible. I saw every adept weapon, which is usually what I'm so good at ZVP. Is my early game is almost perfect, because I play so much against Protoss that I know the exact counter, the exact drone count of everything in the early game, and what I have to do and what I don't have to do. I made blind spores, and I made too many units early on against a glaive into third base opener. I scouted his gas timings though, and I was pretty sure that he was going to go Stargates. It was very obvious to me that the reason he did this while I was playing was because I know him and Skillos are good friends. They talk about everything, and the only other player who plays this opener in Europe, because he copied it from Chop, was Skillos, and I killed him every time he did it. So I was sure that Hellraiser was going to blind counter my all-in against it, so he went double Stargate, which I predicted, and I had a bunch of queens, but my early game was awful. I made too many units early on. I made spores expecting DTs, even though I'm pretty sure I scouted for proxy pylons. And I also saw every weapon of adept. If I just see the third base timing and the adept weapons, I'm fairly certain there can't even be a direct shrine theoretically, nor a proxy pylon. But I was just afraid of losing instead of playing the game. Similarly to my series against Seoul, especially in the second game. And I did not have the perfect early game that I usually have, and I end up not in that great of a position. But then instead of still just keeping my mental straight and thinking, okay, so now he's just making Skytoss units, but he doesn't have anything, because he actually also had a shitty opener. So I could have just went, let's say, Roach Queen max out, Roach Ravager Queen max out, attack, 0 chance he holds it. Even Roach Ravager Hydra I could have done. There is 0% chance that he holds that. But I let him go into the late game because I was afraid of losing. Because I lost with the push before, even though that was a completely different scenario. So we go into a late game, and this time he has way more map control because he has more Void Rays early on comparatively to his carrier opener, which obviously delays his Void Ray production, and also I was not delayed because there was no glaives. So this time he has more map control, and I just don't do anything because I just want to survive. My mindset in this game was purely, if I survive, I will win the game, because he can't micro late game. And I ended up losing 0 late game fights in that game, but I still lost because he out-expanded me. I didn't counterattack once in the entire game. I did not use my speed advantage for anything. I was just afraid of sending my units out and dying at that exact moment, even though that's not realistic. And I don't know why I did that, and I don't know how exactly that happened, but I just played awful, and I lost against a player that I should not ever lose to. Not even a map, but I lost a series, and at that point I felt really bad. And this now is the exact opposite effect of what I had in the last one, where at this point, every single game from now on, I'm starting to have debates with myself in my head, where my most common thought throughout this is, God, I'm so bad. Why am I so bad? But then I'm like, stop thinking that. That makes no sense. You're still 7k and you're better than your opponent. You can clearly win. And then my next thought would be, why am I even thinking this right now? There's a game happening. And by the time this circle goes through and finishes, besides there starting another useless circle of random fucking thoughts in my head, there's a game happening, which is basically just playing in the background, and none of my brain cells go towards the game. So basically I'm playing completely on autopilot, which means there are things not happening like scouting or other things. It's basically the complete opposite of being in the zone. I played the next series against DNS, and because I felt that in the early game, My plan actually was to play later games, but because I felt that in the early game, I went against my game plan, and I went for all-ins twice, and I won with them. And, or at least I got ahead. I actually played a late game against DNS as well, but I got a little bit ahead with my early all-in, and then I played a decent late game, and I won against him game 1, and then game 2 I beat him with a Queen Roach Ravager March, almost maxed out when he went Void Race into Charged Archon. And I had these thoughts consistently in my mind, and that's the reason why I went for these offensive builds, because they force you to... they first of all, you are the aggressor, which is always so much easier than being the defender and reacting, and you also know what exactly is going to happen. Whereas your opponent needs to still react, and he might not have practiced that scenario as much as you. So I ended up beating DNS, but I was not happy with that series at all. I was not happy with that series at all because I just didn't do what I practiced or what I thought would give me the highest chance of winning. I swapped last second. And then the next series happened. At this point I lost 2 series. One against a player that is okay to lose against, and then one against Hellraiser. But if I win every series from here on out, I still even would get top 2 because I saw Seoul already lost against DNS. He later on also went on to lose against Marine Lord, I believe, and he dropped a lot of maps, so it was not the worst. But the next series was a must-win in my mind. It was against Marine Lord, who played decent so far in the tournament. He did a lot better than last season, but I was fairly certain he was going to proxy Rex me and pull off some weird shit. I also told Aquarium actually before the Soul series that he should never block my 3rd base. Before the Marine Lord series I told him, you should block my 3rd base. Marine Lord has a high chance of doing that. And what happened? He proxy Rexed me in the first game. And this is actually, I think, the game that completely broke me. I was a little bit there's a little bit of a backstory of what exactly happened there, and you guys can verify this during the game. But also I just wouldn't come up with a story like that. This sounds like the biggest excuse ever, but I think it's funny, so I'm gonna say it anyways. What happened there? So I was a little bit tired before the series, so I decided, because I had to keep yawning before the game started, I was gonna try to pump myself up, which I usually never do. I don't really usually listen to music to pump myself up or anything before the game starts. Throughout the last year, I usually listened to classic. While I was playing in tournaments this year, I usually listened to nothing. So, to pump myself up, I listened to Falling Apart from Zebrahead, which ended up being, once again, perfect foreshadowing for what was about to happen. So I had the Falling Apart playing on max volume before the game started to pump myself a little bit up, because you have to wait forever in the lobby where you can't do anything. Like, I can't just play and get my mind off of anything, because they invite you into the lobby when you're on the mainstream forever, and then they wait because they're doing an interview with the series before or whatever, and then they have 20 fucking breaks. So I'm sitting there for 15 minutes in my lobby trying to pump myself up, so I'm listening to the song, right? And then I stop the song when the game is starting, and then the game starts, and I have everything's falling apart. I have that in my mind playing over and over and over again. It's called Earworm in Germany. I'm not sure what it's called in English. So basically, I can't get that out of my mind. So I finally, after 1 minute into the game, I tab out. I start Spotify and I start my classic music playlist, because I just need to get some shit over that. And then I see in the background, because my Spotify doesn't fill out the entire thing, I see on the minimap that is SCV. 2 SCVs are coming on the minimap. So I'm pretty sure if you guys check the replay, at that point I'm not doing anything in the replay because I'm tabbed out. Also, the volume was way too loud, so I panicked. I put the volume down. The music was still playing a little bit, but I had to. It's relatively precise. Then I tap back out and I just pull as many drones as I can to the low ground to try and hold his stuff. He has a backup bunker, and the correct response against a backup bunker is making a spine. But because I pulled the drones earlier than usual, this amount, I did not have money for a spine. Also because I made 2 queens. I end up panicking so hard. I put my overlord on the pillar. It's not quite on the pillar. I lose it to the Marines, even though it's over the pillar for like a solid 5 seconds at least. I feel like it felt like an eternity. It was on the pillar, and I tried to fix it, but I couldn't. So I lose the overlord. I get supply blocked. I don't have money for a spine, so I don't make it, and I just lose straight up to the proxy Rex. Even after I practiced so much against proxy Rex, I just lost against that one straight up. I saw it quite far away as well. he put it in the perfect location for avoiding my overlord, but I even told my opponents to the perfect locations to put it as close as possible where I wouldn't see it. I told those to my Proxy Rex opponents, and I still did fine, but I just got completely owned. And the second game, I could not I could not have played worse, honestly. I practiced against the block of the third base, but I don't know what I did. Did I lose a drone there? I can't even remember. I was completely lost with my mind. And this was the worst series I ever played in my life. This series against Marine Lord. There was not a single series I played worse ever, and I played a lot of bad series in my life. I played the other worst series of my life ever were one against Hanfi in the EPS semifinals, but I was hangover back then. And the next one would be against Majestic in the the WSG European qualifier in Barcelona. Those, I think, are the ones that stick out the most to me. Those are the worst series. This is the new, by far worst series that I ever played. I just played shit. The entire game went without me paying attention to the game. I kept not microing my units, and I kept having these thoughts in my mind again. Like I wrote down some of the thoughts that I kept having, and I had this kind of for the rest of the tournament. So this is the last time I'm going to bring it up. But this was mostly what I experienced. So the most prominent thought that kept popping up was, why am I playing so bad? And then, why am I thinking about this right now? This doesn't make sense. Logically, I should not be thinking about it right now. So I stopped thinking about it, and then the next thought just rushes into my head from the back. And then and then it's like, so the next thought was like, man, I'm playing so bad right now, my own off race would beat me. And then I was like, I'm wondering if I'm playing normal, if my off race is closer to him playing right now than my real race is. I had this against a lot of opponents, especially against Hellraiser and Milky Cow. Yeah, during it was also the first time I was like, maybe losing isn't even that bad, because maybe they're gonna hire me as a caster, is one thing that I thought of. And I really enjoy casting, but I never get the chance to do it. I shouldn't think about any of that stuff, obviously. Obviously, while I'm doing it. Also, one thought is that this is the biggest underperformance of my career. This would come in, especially later on. And I don't know how stupid I can be to think this kind of stuff, but that was also one of the things that I was like, man, I'm so fucking dumb. Why am I thinking about that right now? Like, what in my mind is wrong that I would even think about that kind of stuff right now? And I also thought a lot about this YouTube video. At that point, I knew I was going to make a YouTube video because I felt like I'm out of the tournament. I was like, okay, I'm going to name this YouTube video From Hero to Zero, which is probably what I'm going to end up naming it when I upload it. One thing also was, man, I can't believe I let Marine Lord get second place in my group as this was happening. Marine Lord or Seoul, I think I should be there. I think the top 8 in Europe is so clear cut that I was like, man, why am I the one to mess up like that all of a sudden? And there were thoughts like that over and over again, and I have like 10 more written down, but I think you guys got the idea. There was some self-pity, and then me telling myself to wake the fuck up, and then the next thought would come in while the game is going on, and everything in the game was just in the background, and I just wouldn't micro anything. I don't even remember what happened in that game. I just remember I played fucking awful. And that kind of kept going on for the rest of the tournament. And the next series I played, I played against Milky Cow, who is in another league. Like, he's 1000 MMR worse than me. And I ended up losing 2-0 against him. And it was, well, he proxy wrecks me twice, and I played pool first twice, and I lost twice. And that just sucked. Like, in the games against him, in the first game, he had a cute mind game, but I went pool first, so it should be a free win. I can send Zergling out on the map that I just didn't do. And my Overlord was not on path anywhere to see a SCV pull, so I died against an SCV pull, even though I defended the Proxy Rex just fine. Second game, I defended the Proxy Rex just fine. I'm afraid of an SCV pull, so I make way more units than necessary, and I end up being behind because of it, for no reason, just because I keep being afraid of everything that is possibly going to happen to me. And I get owned by Milky Cow, a player that I think I could win 10 games in a row under normal conditions without... Like, those thoughts also go on in my mind, which is maybe not showing respect to my opponent, but it's just... You have to set a standard for yourself, otherwise you're never going to be good. And that standard for myself is Definitely higher than losing to Milky Cow. And then the worst thing of all is I didn't play against Shutdown. I stopped practicing at that point. I stopped preparing entirely. I beat Shutdown just based on my normal ZVP stuff. Do not play well that series either. And then I play against Yona. And at this point, all the pressure is off. I feel like I'm out. But then I actually check the group stage. And if I win 2-0 and Seoul beats Hellraiser 2-0, I actually can still advance. So I went before the game and I made one new build. And I thought of what he was going to do. I basically just prepared for 2 maps. I did not prepare a third one. I did not care if I was going to win 2-1. I just wanted to win 2-0. Which ended up being fucking stupid because I lost a bunch of money and EPT points because of it. Quite a bit, I think 40 EPT points, which is super hard to get. But at that point, I didn't really not care about it. I was like, okay, if I'm gonna 2-0, it's gonna be cool. First game, Jagannatha, I was pretty sure he was gonna pick Jagannatha. And I was gonna expand forward. I knew he was gonna link Bane pressure, so I was just gonna defend. And then I was gonna do a delayed roach attack, trying to make it look like a normal one. I did not play that well. I overmade links at first, but the roach attack was perfect because I had the early lead. I took the base closer to him and I knew he was going to do the pressure. So I do that attack, I got ahead, and for some reason I make extra roaches while I'm already ahead instead of just making drones. I even have an upgrade with that. I started with +1 because this should be a transitional semi all-in where I get some drones. If I kill the third base, it's entirely over. But I have a lot of drones myself. And I did not drone up, and then he made a Spire, and I didn't scout it. And I barely lost, even though I could have probably easily killed him with Roach Ravager if I just went earlier. So at that point, I'm 100% out of the tournament. Second game, I have a blind counter build or a win, and I do not look at the minimap at all. He bailing bested me. Yeah, I went 2 base and made 4 queens, because I was fairly certain that he was gonna do something. I actually thought he was gonna link pressure himself to not die against my, or predicting that I was gonna do something wild myself. He did something way more drastic, which was a link Bane all in himself, and I had 4 queens and I somehow didn't defend it because I don't know how I couldn't defend that. I can't tell you, to be honest. That was a complete builder win and I lost. So in the end, I end up being second to last in my group, I believe. Below Milky Cow. Below Milky Cow, barely above DNS. Worse than Milky Cow, Shutdown, Hellraiser, Soul, and Marine Lord. All of a sudden, even though everything before this tournament for myself pointed towards me making a top 4 run, or aiming towards a top 4 run, already thinking about, okay, I'm gonna have to beat Showtime and Hero Marine to make top 4, you know, that kind of stuff. Maybe I can beat Rainer if Rainer is not on point, and then maybe I can make another run. It's gonna be great. It all ended way before any of that happened. Because of my own mistakes, because I played too bad. So there you have it. This entire video was basically to go ahead and answer the question that a lot of you guys I know had, which was, why did this happen, how did it happen, and what exactly happened during the games. And this was an honest answer. You can take it as an excuse, but I don't really mean it as such. I think my opponents played better than me, and I think the only one to blame for that is myself. And that's just what this video is made for my honest opinions and for a little bit of an explanation. The other question is now, how can I fix this for the future? Because this is something that I've had for quite a while, something that I did in the past when I couldn't focus, which I thought was mostly because of nerves. Was that I would focus on one thing at a time. I would think during the game, okay, I will make a drone now. The next thing I will do is make a drone, then a hatchery, then a drone, a gas, a pool, an overlord, until it stops, and then hopefully I'm in the zone or in the game. Which I tried this as well this time, but it didn't work. So what I'm actually gonna try to do now is I picked up meditation. I tried to meditate, or I did meditate daily ever since that tournament is over, and I did it with an app. I tried picking up meditation actually before because it seemed like the obvious solution, but it did not seem like a good use of time, and it was very frustrating for me to meditate because I couldn't focus on anything. I actually also would just have the huge storm of thoughts, of random thoughts in my head while meditating. So now with the app, it's actually a lot easier for me to start out with and to do it daily. And I hope that will help a little bit. I think I might also take some or drink some coffee or energy drinks before the game starts, because I got a little bit down before the tournament started a couple of times, but that's something special that I did not do yet, so I'm gonna try to experiment maybe a little bit with that. But overall, I'm mostly gonna hope that the meditation helps focus. Also, I just need to be able to snap out of it. I need to be able to snap out of it in a bad tournament. I also don't think this would ever happen if the format is changed, because the breaks between one game to another amplifies these feelings like 10 times for me, because the moment the game stops, I can't stop thinking about, man, I can't believe I lost that. Why? How did I play that bad? How did I lose against that strategy? Why didn't I just do this? And this kind of stuff keeps repeating. When I'm laying in bed, when I'm trying to go to sleep, I won't be able to, because this kind of stuff keeps repeating. So I hope the meditation helps, even outside of the game. Like, I'm not going to be able to meditate during the game, I'm pretty sure, but so it doesn't spiral out of control. I hope that will help. And maybe a final question is, how do you feel? To be honest, I don't feel too bad about it. This was the worst result I've ever had in my entire life, depending on what my skill actually was. I think I went into this being the 5th/6th best player on a level with Showtime, slightly above Max Packs and Laser. And I believe that I still am on this level, but I performed on the level of a top 30 player. I performed terribly. I ended up below Milky Cow, Hellraiser, Marine Lord, Shutdown, all of these players that I usually play a little better than. So I need to be able to not just rely on my automatic play. I need to be able to also hold proxy Rexes, because quite honestly, this is what I lost most games against. So I'm gonna try to figure that out myself as well. But honestly, I feel completely fine. The biggest reason for that is honestly that my team is very supportive, and just having a team overall is so much better than last year, where I did not have a team, where I would think of retiring. Like, if this happened last year, for sure I would be gone. If this season happened last year, I for sure would not be on YouTube, or I probably would have resumed studying, because I think this would have broke me. Whereas right now, I don't mind it at all. So please do not pity me, for the love of God. I also don't really need you can do it the next time. I don't really need that crap. I'm completely fine. So yeah. Anyways, sorry for rambling on for so long. This has basically been a podcast with myself. And I mean, I'm not sure how repetitive I was being, but I think I brought the point across. And if you guys enjoyed this, you guys can let me know in the comments. Either way, I'm going to be streaming again, so make sure to check out my Twitch, but I'm sure most of you guys are following it already. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.